This year's Xbox Game Showcase has become a smashing success. It became so successful that it managed to gain the approval of many mainstream YouTubers and Twitch streamers.
We're cooking. Doom Guy is cooking.
Don't get me wrong, a lot of the games shown on screen, it looks pretty good. There is a lot of promise in 2025. I mean, after all, that's when GTA 6 released. But the one game that broke me through this event was Gears of War E-Day. And Dom returns? Oh my god, I love Dom so much. His character wasn't much in the first game, but as he progresses, it gets so much better. You can definitely tell that I'm prepared for the next Gears of War game. That's because the series was abandoned in 2018. Well, I'm kinda wrong. After we got Gears of War 5, we then got Gears Tactics in 2020, but nobody wants to consider that game canon. And most importantly, nobody didn't ask for this. Going back to Gears of War, the main timeline, what does E-Day stand for? Well, I know, and luckily for me, I played through the first Gears of War game, and I'm here to explain everything to you. And while we're at it, we might as well talk about everything that is good and bad in the first Gears of War game. One thing I need to bring up real quickly, if you guys came from my Minecraft video, you probably heard a fan going in the background, and you probably hear a fan going in this video. That's because I'm literally cooking in my household, and I need this fan in order to survive. So I'm sorry that if you hear something blowing in the background, I'll try to reduce the noise as much as possible. Let's talk about the first problem with this game. The storytelling is god-awful. Gears of War was created in 2006, and in that time period, game developers were more focused on creating a fun game rather than focusing on the story, which is completely okay. You always gotta make sure that the gameplay is fun. But for anybody that is looking at the screen and is wondering what is going on, then I have to explain exactly what's happening. I'm not going to explain everything because I'd rather save some of that information for Gears of War 2 and 3 if I ever get around making those videos. So let's just talk about the three main points right now. Welcome to planet Sarah. That's right, Sarah, not Earth. We officially made it in that point of life where we had to expand our divisions across the galaxy in order to repopulate. Life on Sarah was great. There was plenty of green grass growing everywhere, the atmosphere wasn't poisoned, making it easy to breathe, and most importantly, there was fresh, untapped water everywhere, whether it's inside the earth or it's all around in the oceans. But there was one massive problem humanity ran into. There was no fossilized fuel. Well, I'm kind of wrong to some extent. There was some fossilized fuel, but it was very minuscule amounts. It was not enough to keep an entire civilization powered up. So everybody on the planet started scrambling to find an alternative to fossil fuel, and luckily they did find that. Deep down in the crust, humanity found a liquid that was very similar to Mountain Dew, called Emotion. Emotion was a resource that started off in a liquid form that was far superior to fossil fuel because it burned brighter and slower and it was more powerful, yielding way more results than fossilized fuel. Because of this discovery, the world split in two factions. One of the factions that we'll always be reminded of, the Coalition of Governments, also known as the COG, while the other faction was called the Union of Independent Republicans, also known as the UIR. If the COG seized control over emotion, then they'll distribute it, but you have to pay for taxes. If the UIR claimed it, then they'll still distribute it, but you have to join their cause. So if we're comparing these people into our reality, the COG is basically the American government, while the UIR is the Soviet Union. Very interesting factions, I must say. But just to let you know, both sides disagreed with their visions, so this began the Pendulum Wars. The Pendulum Wars raged on for 79 years until the COG finally put a stop to it. You see, the UIR made a fascinating discovery with emotion. They saw that it wasn't just a resource, but it can also be used as a weapon. By converting emotion into refined emotion, this being turning it from a liquid to a solid, they saw that they can be able to send this up into space and turn it into an orbital laser. After the COG got word of this, they decided to take the battle to the UIR at Asheville Fields. There, they decided to steal the plans for the ultimate weapon and decided to hand it over to their faction. Once that happened, the COG finally created what we all know today, the Hammer of Dawn. Think of the Hammer of Dawn like a Latina mom bringing down the belt on you, but instead of a belt, it's a laser. Now that the Cog had their super weapon, this now made it so that nobody would dare contest against them. This is what ended the Pendulum Wars. But the Cog's victory was short-lived, because a new war began. A much more terrifying event that was much more deadlier than the Pendulum Wars was the Locust Wars. The Locusts emerged from underground and wreaked havoc across Serra for a reasoning that we don't know in this game but find out in the other two games. When the Cog found out about the scenario, they didn't know how to assess it. People were constantly dying left and right. It was bringing about so much confusion, and most importantly, they didn't even know who or what was the Locust. So they settled things in the most barbaric way. In the boardroom, somebody said, "We have a space laser in the orbit. Why are we not using it?" And this is where things went from 1,000 to 1,000,000 times worse. You see, the Locusts came from underground, meaning that their armies reside underground. Sure, the Hammer of Dawn strikes did kill some Locusts on top, but ultimately, you actually killed more humans than Locusts, because the humans stayed on top. But nobody in the boardroom cared, because in their eyes, they believed this was humanity's last chance for survival, when really it wasn't. So they went through with the plan, and they scorched their own cities. And because of this action, millions of people died. Because of all of this, not 100, nor 1,000, nor 1,000,000, but 2 billion people on the surface were wiped in under a few days. This horrible tragedy has been forever marked as Emergence Day, or in a shorter word, E-Day. Okay, there was a lot to unfold there, and unfortunately the rabbit hole goes even deeper, but I can't explain all of it, because this is the first game where it doesn't explain much. All you need to know is that there's an ongoing war, and we're thrown in the middle of it without any context. But don't worry, we're not here to talk about the campaign. We're mainly here to figure out why Gears of War became so popular in the first place. And well, that answer is very simple. It always kept to a dark, gritty atmosphere. Okay, I can't say always, knowing that Gears of War 4 and 5 lost most of that when they switched main protagonists. But this franchise was always meant to house some of the most toughest characters we ever seen. Like Marcus Phoenix. He sounds like he eats nails for breakfast.
Without any milk.
His character always sounds angry and mean, and most importantly, he's always set in one mode: get the job done.
I expect you to give me 110%, Phoenix.
I'm not doing this for you.
You have to be a real badass to talk back like that to a colonel. But most importantly, his character fits the atmosphere, the war that is going on around him. And this is because Gears of War was always meant to be taken seriously, which is why people gave a lot of shit to Gears of War 4 and 5, because the characters that replaced Marcus Phoenix were just angry teenagers.
You know who my father was, right? Who my mother was?
And you? Know who my father is?
Well, lady, he might want to do business with you.
Just take us to see him, little man. Now.
This is what separates Marcus from Kate. He's a grown man. He understands when to use brute force, and most importantly, to allow his teammates to talk for him.
It's all you, Dom.
Don't worry, I got it. I won't let you down.
Oh, and to give you context for this mission, Kate was tasked to recruit the settlement to join the Cog army. She hasn't stepped foot in their camp yet, and she begins by delivering one of the most narcissistic quotes in human history. This kind of behavior is not accepted in our society. So why the hell would you make her a main protagonist? I don't get it. She doesn't deserve to be placed in between these two legends. I think you understand where I'm getting at. Kate is everything the Gears of War series should not be. But Marcus is a great example of what the franchise should be. And this is another reason why people praised the new Gears of War E-Day trailer. It was also set in another dark, gritty environment, but also it highlighted just how dangerous the Locusts were and how unprepared the Cog were. When you're not banging your head to the storytelling of the first Gears of War game, what you can truly see is just how Sarah has been affected by the Locust War. Remember that talk about the Hammer of Dawn strike killing millions of people on the surface? Well, the citizens of Sarah didn't take kindly to that. They rebranded themselves to what we know now as the Stranded. They're basically people that didn't get drafted in the COG army because they didn't believe in their cause or didn't want to fight for the COG.
Hey, pig. I'm talking to you, piggy.
Blow me. Leave it alone, Baird.
What are you, my mom?
They hate the government so much that they want their heads plastered on their walls. And you honestly can't blame them. The COG killed so many people on E-Day. Going through one of the towns of the Stranded, you could see the living conditions they're under. It's like they're living in slums. It's filled with bacteria, mice are running around, and, well, unfortunately, their only food source is mice and squids. It just highlights perfectly what people have to go through and live with in order to survive. And what makes matters worse is that there is some towns we do pass by that look like there were human life here, but now it's been devoided of that. It really makes you wonder what happened here. Did the locusts get to them, or did they make it out in time? We don't know. And unfortunately, this game isn't designed like Resident Evil, where you go on a mystery hunt. But you gotta admit, the artwork did a great job at highlighting just how bad the war has gotten. Now, if they wanted to go a step further, they should have done something like Fallout 4, where they litter skeletons around the place, just showing how many people died in the effects of E-Day. But what we have so far is perfect, and I applaud Coalition Games for that. But how is the gameplay?
That all day long.
Well, it's actually pretty good, but I have one major issue with it. There's not many guns in the game. So let me put it to you like this. There is 2 assault rifles, 2 pistols, 1 grenade type, 2 launchers, 1 shotgun, 1 sniper, and 1 special weapon. That is pretty little, but it's formed like this because of a specific reason, and I mentioned this in my Payday 2 review. The game is supposed to be played kinda similar like chess. Now, it's not noticeable when you're playing on the lower difficulties, but for me, I was playing on the second hardest difficulty, and I quickly took a notice to it. I was afraid that if I played on this difficulty, it would make it so that some weapons are useless, and that would have been really bad knowing that there's a very limited amount of guns in the game. I was greatly proven wrong. Every gun has a purpose in this game. Okay, maybe not the hammer burst. It feels awful to use that. The Nasher shotgun may be the only shotgun in the game, but you gotta admit, it feels great to land your shots on the locusts. I love watching their bodies crumble like Legos. It's very satisfying. Since I dislike the hammer burst, this means that the Lancer is the only assault rifle I feel comfortable using. And honestly, it feels great. It's able to handle at all ranges. And if you're wondering why it comes with a chainsaw bayonet, I can explain that. The locusts have very thick hides. They're so thick, in fact, that a regular bayonet can't pierce through it. So the COG needed a new service weapon, and luckily they saw that a chainsaw can pierce through locust skin. So they decided to slap that on an assault rifle. And straight up, this was a great idea. It feels great to chainsaw someone in half. The long shot has got to be the most satisfying sniper to use when you get a headshot. Every time you land it, it always sounds like a pumpkin blowing up. All these guns are great, and most importantly, they fit well within the level design. And what makes this game unique from every other shooter game is the reload mechanic. Nail the reload correctly, your gun does double damage. Nail it wrong, and your gun jams. It's such a fun and addictive gambling system. The Locust quickly reminds you just how deadly and how smart the enemy AI is. Stay in cover for too long, you're a prime suspect for the Grenadier. These guys rush you with shotguns and are capable of flushing you out with a single grenade. Boomers are capable of reducing you to ground beef, but most importantly, they teach you how to use cover. Theron guards are like a boomer and a regular drone combined together. They're capable of fulfilling many roles, and most importantly, they carry torque bows. But that doesn't mean that they're invincible. Just use any gun you like on them. Everything works, including a snub pistol. As for the wrenches, they're Well, they're the pawns. There's nothing really special about them. Their purpose is to be a nuisance so that the other chess pieces can do their job. You see, the thing that these guys all have in common is that they all are capable of being brought down with every gun you bring. The only limit is how you treat the gun. Don't use the shotgun at long range. Don't use the sniper like a shotgun. Use them as they were intended to use. And I know there's gonna be that dude in my comment section that's gonna be like, who the hell uses a shotgun at long range? And I say, go over to Call of Duty and tell those people to stop using those guns for the wrong purposes. So even though there's a limited amount of guns in the game, they all feel pretty good to use. My only problem with the game is that there's a glitch with the Troika turrets. I love how on the second hardest difficulty, it says you know how to land a headshot. Yet for some reason, the enemies on the Troika turrets, 90% of their head is invincible. Most of the time that I was able to kill them is with a well-placed grenade or when the crosshair lights up red. That would indicate that I was capable of killing them. But besides that, on this difficulty, these guys are extremely deadly. They shred through your health instantly. But luckily for me, that was the only glitch I ran into. Yeah, I'm kinda lying. One part in the Brumac fight, the big boy stood in place and you needed him to come down the lane in order to proceed to the next level. So the only way I was able to fix this was to restart my game. I don't know how buggy the Ultimate Edition is, but I'm lucky that I only ran into 2 of them. So I'm gonna say that it needs a little bit of tweaking in order to be perfect. As for the level design, most of them are kinda basic. Through most of my experience, it's just been me hanging back using a ranged weapon. There is times when using a Nash or shotgun is useful, but I highly recommend you don't do this against a grenadier. There are some level designs that are actually pretty fun to play through. There's this one mission where you have to travel by night in a vehicle and you have to use a UV light to defend yourself. Going up against the Berserker, you have to use sounds in order to bring her outside just to use the Hammer of Dawn. There's no propane tanks anywhere, but my favorite level, Nightfall, allows you to use the Locust's enemies against them. My favorite part has got to be fighting the Locust General. There's Reavers on the side of the train constantly shooting at you, and you have to stay in the fields of light because the Krills are able to kill anybody that hangs out in the dark. And on top of that, the Krill are constantly hovering around the General, so you have to use explosives in order to get rid of them. But my favorite part is probably when you get behind everything that's chaotic and hop on that turret and you just dump all that ammo into him. The gameplay in the game is not the greatest in the world, and to be honest, I actually prefer the other Gears of War games besides this, but you gotta admit, it is enjoyable at some times. Now, I wish I could say the same about the story. If you read the title or thumbnail by now, you can probably understand what I'm trying to get at with this video. Great gameplay, terrible storytelling. Now you might be asking me, point blank, this series has been renowned for its storytelling and is what kept the game going for so long. And I say yes, until you make it to Gears of War 2, 3, and 5. There is so many things in this game that is left unexplained, and it's designed like that because the developers wanted their player base to switch on over to the other Gears of War games. The first game, you don't learn anything about the Pendulum Wars or E-Day, and that's extremely bad knowing that that's what started this entire war. I played this game in 2008, and it took me until 2023 to realize that I wasn't fighting on planet Earth, but instead Sarah. It's not brought up once that you're fighting on a different planet on this game. It's okay to leave some plot points unchecked, but these are very basic ones that needs to be explained at the very first game, not the other 2 or 3. What this boils down to is that spend money on our other games so you can get the answers you're looking for. This is the story of the first Gears of War game. We start off as Marcus Phoenix in a prison cell. Dom comes in and breaks us out because Colonel Hoffman has pardoned everybody in this prison from their crimes. But it turns out, Marcus Phoenix is the only one left alive in there. So we go meet Colonel Hoffman, and he gives us a task to go find the resonator. The resonator is a device that is meant to map out the locust tunnels so that the cog can find out exactly where to hit them. We then find Alpha Team, who has the resonator, but unfortunately we lost Lieutenant Kim and Carmine. We then can't extract through a helicopter because of nightfall, therefore we have to begin on foot. But then we go to a stranded camp where we get a truck so we can go finish the job. We then make it to our target destination, we kill hundreds of locusts just to get down to the actual target, plant the resonator, and get out of there. Turns out all of this was for nothing. The resonator did a terrible job mapping out the locust tunnels, therefore we find a device down there that actually held all the locust information and their tunnel systems. Meaning that everybody that died just to get that resonator down there died for nothing. So this begins our new quest. Apparently we need to get the full information from Marcus Phoenix's house, because for some reason he has it down there. We then get the information, run from a giant dinosaur, actually fry the giant dinosaur at our power plant station, and then we hop on the train to go plug in the information we attained. We then launch the torpedoes, and they finally destroyed the Locust stronghold. Now, let's talk about the Locust's plan. It's never brought up, it's something that you have to look at in order to understand. The Locust comes from a place called the Hollow. The Hollow is a place that is home to the Locust and a bunch of indigenous creatures, and one of them is the most deadliest being that will be hovering over your head at night. These are the Krill. They're the most dangerous creatures in the Hollow. They're extremely resistant to bullet fire, but are extremely vulnerable to light. The Locust needs these creatures called Cedars to release other creatures called Nemesis. Nemesis are basically squids that basically taken flight. Don't ask me, I really don't know the anatomy around this being. But one thing I do know is that the Nemesis leave behind ink. So their plans are to bring the Nemesis out at daytime, ink the sky so that the Krill can roam at daytime and kill everyone on the surface. This is a genius idea, but when you're playing through the game, you quickly realize the Krill have no allegiance. If you release them on the top, then you literally kill everybody, including yourselves. But then Rom comes in the picture. For some reason, he's the only Locust that has a special connection between the Krill, and it's never explained! Like, this scene is cool and all, but you gotta really question, why does he have a special connection between these beings? Was there a way to make it so that the Locust could use these guys efficiently? Well, guess what? It's never explained. This is Gears of War's one story in a nutshell. It's show, don't tell, or tell and don't show. It's awful. Don't believe me? Let's look at every scene General Rom is in, and he only has 3 scenes. Scene 1, he slowly creeps up behind Lieutenant Kim and kills him. Scene 2, he got a hold of a COG soldier and is now listening in to our radio. Then he plots his next attack. Scene 3, he's at the end of the train protecting the bomb and we finally kill him. All 3 of these scenes look amazing, but they're also bad, and I'll explain now. Scene 1, he's creeping up behind Lieutenant Kim, but Lieutenant Kim is killing his men right in front of him. He's so busy going through his supervillain walk that he doesn't give a shit about what's happening to its men. Also, why is this Locust chasing after Marcus? Just fire your gun. Like, wait a minute. You missed point blank range? So I am right. The hammer burst is the worst weapon in the game. Glad I was right. Scene 2, we were down there deploying the resonator and we got out of there. And for some reason, General Rom was down there and he allowed us to do that. Now, you could chalk this up as he didn't know that we were down there or he didn't have time to get down there, but we made it to the facility. We killed hundreds of Locust soldiers and wrenches, we killed a giant spider, and we killed the most highly elite soldiers they had guarding the location, and for some reason, he doesn't know that we're down there? Oh my god, that's an oopsies. And where have this guy been this whole time? This entire mission has been carried out by 4 men, and for some reason this guy just materialized out of nowhere. And scene 3, I already mentioned this, why isn't the Krill killing General Rom? It's cool that you can use them as a shield, but you seriously need to explain this. Like, make it make sense. And if you still don't believe me, then how about we move over to Marcus Phoenix? The second we start the game, we're already inside the prison. And this is where the game sinned already. It never explains why Marcus ended up in that prison. And most importantly, what the hell was going on in there? As we make it to the helicopter, we hear this one quote from one of our most beloved characters in the Gears franchise, Carmine.
Hey, are you the Marcus Phoenix? The one who fought at Asfield Fields?
Yep.
Wow, cool!
Not really.
Oh wait, but what is Asheville Fields? Well, it's the Pendulum Wars I talked about. I kid you not, if I didn't bring up any of that stuff earlier, you wouldn't understand the scene. This is the only time the Pendulum Wars are ever brought up in this game, and it's brought in the most confusing way possible. We don't know anything about that because we never played anything in that time period that was close to the Pendulum Wars. The first time we meet Colonel Hoffman, he calls us this.
You! Traitor like you doesn't deserve to wear the uniform.
Looks to me like you need all the help you can get.
Step aside.
But we never figure out why he's a traitor. The last time we ever get to hear about Marcus's imprisonment was at the House of Sovereigns.
This building used to be a beautiful place. There's a lot of history here.
A lot of lies, too.
Oh, you've got some nerve, soldier. I know all about your trial.
This trial was a sham, sir.
After that, it's never brought up again. Here, let me explain why he's been imprisoned. Marcus Phoenix was tasked by Colonel Hoffman to retrieve the Hammer of Dawn and bring it to assist him in evacuating civilians. But his father was under siege by the Locusts, so he disobeys Colonel Hoffman, brings the Hammer of Dawn to save his father, and still fails in that attempt. This is what leads to his imprisonment. It took me almost 20 seconds to explain all of that. I'm pretty sure you have 20 seconds to put that in the game. The only reason why I know all of that is because I played Gears of War 3. It has a 3-minute cutscene that explains what happened to Marcus Phoenix in that time period. I'm pretty sure you have 3 minutes to put it in this game. This results back to spend $30 on the next Gears of War game so you can get the answers you're looking for. It's stupid. Like, it's okay if it's huge points, but this is basic information we need to know. And this is the final point I'll be making. This is the scene where we deployed the resonator to map the Locust tunnels, but for some reason, it's treated like it's supposed to be the destruction of the Locust tunnels. It's like the developers forgot that the resonator was a mapping beacon and tried treating the scene as the destruction of the Hollow. But it gets way worse. So we sacrificed a fisherman, an entire settlement, and we lost Lieutenant Kim and Carmine just to get this device down there, and it didn't work. Okay, that's a huge bummer. But get this. This tiny little device that Marcus has in his hands holds all the information we need to find the Locust stronghold. And what's even more sad is that we've seen this device at the very beginning of the game. Carmine had it in his hands, but he didn't know how to access it. So we had to progress halfway through the game just so Baird can get his hands on it and finally tap into it. We literally could have ended this campaign by now if we just taken a little bit more time to look at it. But this is the part that gets me screaming in my pillow. The second we hand the info to Anya, she says that the info originated from Marcus Phoenix's house. So we go there, and it's true. This important information has been sitting in this man's basement for God knows how long, and nobody is questioning why Marcus or his father ever had this info in their house. If I was their general, I'd be furious and be demanding for answers of why they have this info and never shared it with the COG. And once again, nobody gives a shit. Everybody just moves on with their day as if everything is okay. It's not okay. This is information that the COG spent years trying to understand, and it's just been sitting down in someone's basement this entire time. It's sad. So many people died just to make all of this happen. But once again, nobody cares, because once again, it goes back to show, don't tell, or tell and don't show. Okay, and that was the first Gears of War game I ever went over. To put up a summary, the gameplay is extremely fun, but the story is so bad that I want to put a screwdriver through my brain. I would say this would have to be my third favorite Gears of War game. It's not bad, but Gears of War 2 and 3 are infinitely better than this, so you really can't compare these two. But hey, since Gears of War E-Day will be coming out in 2025, this might be a great chance for them to talk about everything that they missed out in the first game. And if they don't, then I'm truly convinced that the developers abandoned Gears of War. However, this is my opinion on the game, and if you guys agree or disagree, let me know in the comment section below. But furthermore, I'm out of here. Goodbye, guys.